Women in South Asia, changing, growing and moving forward. UNIFEM has been working in South Asia since the early 90s, and in South Asia women's movements have been active since the last 2 or 3 decades. Women began to realize that they had found a friend in UNIFEM, and UNIFEM also realized that it needed an ally to move its agenda ahead in South Asia. So the two came together in a very natural and coherent way. It all started in 1975 at the First World Conference on Women, which was held in Mexico City. The UN called this conference because it was alarmed at the deteriorating status of women. And in Mexico City, there was a strong call for a specialized UN agency focusing on women. A year later, UNIFEM was born. Fast forward to 1995, at the Fourth World UN Conference on Women, held in Beijing, the People's Republic of China. Here, 40,000 women came together and almost 200 governments, and the platform for action was passed in Beijing. The work that UNIFEM South Asia has been doing since 1995 is taking the platform for action forward.
So 1 year after Beijing, on 9th of September itself, in India, we hosted the first meeting. And in that meeting, it was more like a very, it was an open agenda, okay? And it was also trying to see that rather than you pushing the agenda yourself, you could facilitate, and you would want to see, where we were and how eager were the governments, how eager was the NGOs, because one had in mind a very unique forum.
The Beijing 4th World Women's Conference, which provided us a space to raise all our concerns on a very larger platform. The governments at the local level, they got a message that women's issues is not a matter related with welfare, but it is related with proactive policies and political will together.
After Beijing, every other year UNIFEM has hosted a meeting in cooperation with the host country, bringing together all the SAARC countries to talk about their work in the region. And this was despite the fact that there were conflicts within and between the countries in the SAARC region.
The whole thrust of UNIFEM was to get the voices of women together. So it doesn't become just a global event, but it becomes the women's event. That was the thrust.
That has been very, very important because it has brought all stakeholders in one table, particularly the government and the lead civil society organizations and NGOs who've been working in this action.
So that is the significance that the policymakers, the leaders, the ministers who are involved in implementing the Beijing Declaration can take a stock, and at the same time they can also exchange views with the leaders from other countries.
UNIFEM comes, as a facilitator, tries to identify catalytic areas where it could be providing support.
They have done a tremendous amounts of research work, and that I like about this organization.
I think it's a kind of an open forum where you, where you discuss with transparency.
Otherwise, we don't get opportunity to interact with NGOs and women's organizations in our own region.
It's not making waves or anything, but it's definitely making its impact felt in its own quiet way.
Beijing +10 is not enough. This momentum has to go on. This synergy has to be retained. If we are really looking for gender justice, if we are really serious about equity and equality, I think the process has to go on.
UNIFEM in South Asia will continue to be a catalyst, a trendsetter and a pioneer. And it will continue to respond to the emerging challenges in South Asia.